All right, so let's talk about The Godfather, boy. At long
Okay.
last, for the first time ever on this show here, we're going to talk about The Godfather. But in this case, we're going to talk about The Godfather Part 3, or in this case, we're going to call it The Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone. So I will kick things off with, you just kind of just talk about the Godfather trilogy as a whole, right? Ricardo, of course, you could share your thoughts on it, right? Because it's merely a discussion, right? Um, so the funny thing is with the Godfather series, right, is that the first movie that I actually saw in the trilogy was Part 3. Because I don't know if you remember, but there was a point in time where TTT, Child 2 and 13, actually showed Part 3.
Right.
So I saw it at a young age. I just knew Al Pacino. That was all I knew about it.
Yeah.
I didn't really know about the Corleone and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know anything prior to it, but I do remember when it was out in theaters and how big a deal it was, right? But at the time, this is young critic me. I didn't know how big of a deal and how impactful the first two movies were, right? I learned that later on. So I saw the third one. I mean, it was what it was. I didn't really remember much of it the first time I saw it, but I'll never forget. There was a point in time with TCM, right? Well, the proper TCM, not the hybrid version that we have right now, right? Had the first two Godfather movies,
Right.
and I was excited. Or I think it was either TCM or Cinemax, one of those two stations. I think it was Cinemax, right? Had the Godfather 1 and 2 showing back to back, and I made it an absolute must to watch both shows. So sat down, watched the first one, absolutely loved it. It still remains one of my all-time favorite movies ever.
Yeah.
I love the storytelling, I love the music, I love the direction, cinematography, the world that he created, the comparison between what we see, just these characters in one, you know what I mean? Like all these shadowy spaces where, characters would come in and talk about doing hits and all that kind of stuff. And then you have that outside world with the families and all that kind of stuff, right? And it just told a really, really powerful story. It introduced us to, Michael Corleone, played by Al Pacino, and just that inner conflict in terms of, hey, I didn't want to be part of this crime family, no matter I born into it, but through some circumstances, well, mainly through the attempted assassination of his dad, played by the incomparable Marlon Brando, he kind of
Yeah.
ends up in this world too, there, and it's just how slowly but surely it just corrupts him. And I was just hooked from the word go. I loved everything about it. The supporting cast was fantastic. James Caan, who played Sonny, his
Yeah.
death scene shocked me the first time I saw it. It just rattled me. Like I didn't see that coming a mile away. Robert Duvall, who plays Tom Hagen, I thought that he was fantastic. Who else? Sterling Hayden, who was the captain, he was great.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Who else? My dad Keaton, who played Kay Adams. Yeah, she was great as well. John Cazale, who played Fredo. I just loved everyone in this show, Trent. And just all the great quotes. Make him off, he can't refuse. All the great
Yeah.
moments with, the
Leave the
seven
colony.
horse head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, leave the gun, take the
Leave the co-
cannoli.
Yeah.
All
Take the
those,
gun.
all those moments, just so much quotables, Trent. So yeah, like I say, just one of my all-time favorite movies. It's just learning later on that this one Best Picture. You know what I mean? When the
Yeah.
1973 Academy was like, yeah, duh. So yeah, Ricardo, thoughts on the first Godfather movie quickly.
Yeah. It's a movie. Don't hype him up as much as I can. Again, it's one of these. The repetition of the film precedes it, and then you finally sit down one day and watch it and be like, okay, you could see why it was a big deal. But without so much stuff that copied since then, it didn't hit you as much. That's me with this. It's like if somebody never see the Matrix and they see it now, be like, okay, they see where it come from. It's that. For me,
Right, right.
I did. I actually like the second film a lot more. Even though it's not the film that it's not the one that sticks in the pop culture tank, right? And that's kind of me with that. It's a big franchise. I understand why it's a big franchise, but I never really care for it because I kind of move on, and that whole world not interesting to me. The whole secret world of the underground mafia, blah blah blah. Sometimes it does work, sometimes it don't work for me. But it's fine. As it is. So that's just me on the first film.
Right, right. I completely understand, but I don't know. I kind of like that whole secret world thing, but just because they incorporated with family, that's really the sell. Like it's about your family, it's about blood, you
Yeah,
know what I mean? But in terms of Godfather 2, here's the funny thing about it, right? So because I watched it back to back, I would admit the first time I saw Godfather 2, I was a little exhausted at this point. Remember we talking about 3 hour films, right? This one is three and
yeah,
a half
yeah,
hours, right?
yeah,
But the thing that struck me though was how darker it became though. And
yeah,
I would argue that this is probably if one of if not the best sequel ever made, because
yeah,
yeah, it
yeah,
did what sequels supposed to do. It goes deeper into the world of the story. It goes into deep dark corners. It really challenges the characters, and it just takes certain things that were established in the first one and really explores them there in this one here. So just seeing how the character of Michael just evolved into a villain, like literally right in front of our eyes, though, still blows my mind, though. You know, like I still have like a soft spot for him because of how he started
yeah,
off as this innocent person, but yeah, this one you really grew to hate him. You know what I mean? Just the him ordering a hit on his older brother Fredo, Dre, like that
yeah,
still grips me, Dre. Like I
yeah,
still get chills when I think about that. You know, this is his older brother, Dre. Even though Fredo didn't do shit, right? But still, Dre, it's like it's blood, Dre. You know. Also but what really caught me by surprise though, and this is just a testament to just how forward thinking Francis Ford Coppola was, is that he basically gave it 2 stories for the price of one. Though he gave it 2 movies.
right,
You know, he because remember in the 60s and 70s, well, 60s and 70s, Italian cinema was big though, like in the state,
correct,
so he gave me a little Italian film in the middle of all this. And essentially, it is well the rise of Vito Corleone, who is played by Robert De Niro. He won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Many
yeah,
people kind of argue over that because I thought that Al Pacino was great in this. Like he could have won an Oscar as well, but it's like, hey,
right,
De Niro was good because he was speaking Italian like 95% of his moments. So okay, let me shoot him. But still a great performance. Don't get me wrong, eh? But just how they were able to tell these 2 stories within this 3.5 hour free work, it just blew me away there. And over the years, I really started like grow to really love the film. Like at first, just like but it just long for the sake of being long. It just felt like it was padding too much. Why we need to see Vito when he was growing up for this boring and is all in Italian and all that kind of stuff. But over the years, as I got older, I was just like, no, this works though, because you really need to see the parallel of Vito to his son Michael there. And just in a nutshell, what it's about is just basically Vito's take on just being this mafia don. It was all about to him justice. Like he felt like, oh, if I don't do this, justice isn't served. So big moment involving him taking out the don in New York at the time there. But it wasn't like anything personal. It was just like, look, this man is a menace, and he's mistreated our people. So I take him out. That's what you do. And if you kind of compare it to Marlon Brando's characters, it always felt like I'm doing this for a greater good. It's not good per se, but it's like no, it's to help people out, even if it means killing people. That's what I do. But in
yeah,
Michael's perspective, it was all like personal there because his family always got shot at, you know what I mean? And it was just like, no, well, once I find out who it is, they dead, and that's all it is. It just felt really, really, really personal, and that was you really saw the parallel between father and son, and that what made the story work. But overall, though, I mean, you still get powerful moments, character moments. Everybody supporting cast, everybody get time to shine. Even they bring back James Caan and all to be in a nice
right,
little cameo in the end, which I love. You know what I mean? The music was incredible in my opinion, and it was just really Coppola saying, look, like if you thought the first film was epic, Dread, I just got multiplied that by 2, Dread. So yes, while the first one is the most popular of the trilogy and people always quote that, but I feel like the second one was more
me too,
mature, it was more
me
forward
too,
thinking, more ambitious, more daring, Dread. And yeah, it's just a great movie overall. And of course, one best picture as well. It's just the one gripe I have is that Al Pacino didn't win none. Robert De
right.
Niro did, but Alan win none. You know what I mean? But yeah, thoughts on Part 2.
Yeah. I love the sequel. Sequel is the film I really really like. This is the one that really worked for me as a film, but it's not. Again, in my head I know it's not the one that everyone. It's not the thing that you remember. Um, that's how I kind of see this that whole thing. Okay, this is a better movie, but it's not the iconic aspect of the franchise. But yeah, this is the one that I like. As I said, more mature, flows better, in fact, and it just builds in really really interesting ways. Much like what the Dark Knight did in Batman. It's that.
Yeah, you're right. As I bring up Dark Knight, this is
Yeah,
the Dark Knight of the series, like hands down.
yeah,
It is
yeah,
Dark Knight, right? Yeah.
yeah. But not iconic. That's the most important point. But it is a better film. I agree with you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I think as far as like iconic, like there's great moments, but like the big line that everybody takes from part two is keep your friends close and your enemies closer. That's like the
Right.
big line, right?
Yeah.
That people take from this. So yeah, seeing both films together, I was like, all right, now I get an appreciation of what this world is about, right? So I jump back into Godfather Part 3 years later, right? And well, funny thing is I actually own the box set, right? Well, yeah, the collection basically that has all three movies. And for me, there was always like this stigma attached to the two, where like, oh,
Yeah.
what I mean,
Yeah.
it's a trequel, so it's not as good as the first two. So that means it's bad, right? Like some people will kind of go as far as saying it's bad because it just could not top what the first two films did. At the time, well, I should say prior to watching Coda, right? I felt like one of the main issues that really brought the film down was the length of time it took for, like, just between films, because the second one came out in 74 and part three came out in 1990s. That's 16 years past,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Too
I
much
felt
time.
like at that time it was just too much time. I felt like because I think like in the 80s you had your Scarface, you had your Untouchables, you had
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in America from Sergio
Right.
Leone. So and it's funny too that he actually put this out in 1990 because the big gangster flick back then was Goodfellas,
Was
right?
Goodfellas. Yeah.
So it's like, come on, Goodfellas, Godfather Part 3, come on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just it's just unfortunate. Then. So I felt like there was just too much time passed between two and three. Also, but I get maybe from Coppola's perspective, maybe he wanted the actors to be older, so he wanted old man Al Pacino. Well, he wasn't really old as such. He just do makeup and make his hair a little silvery so he looks old. He looks old. He looks relatively
Yeah.
old, right? In this, right? But still, I just felt like there was too much time that passed, and by then, people kind of understood, the Godfather's place in American, cinema, right? Because yeah,
Yeah.
it's two of the most iconic films of the 70s. I just want to touch briefly on that. Coppola, do I mean in the 70s, boy? Wow, that man literally was on a roll, Jay, because he didn't have not he had not one but four great movies under his belt in the 70s, Jay.
Yep.
Godfather 1, 2, Conversation, which is a show that a lot of people don't bring up. And I had to bring this up, Apocalypse Now, which
Right.
in my opinion, right now, this is like top 10 favorite movies ever, in my opinion. This is my all-time favorite couple of films. It's one that, first time I saw it, I was like, okay, kind of weird, narrative kind of all over the place and whatnot. But the more I watch it, the more it grew on me, though. And what it just really nailed perfectly was just tone, though. Like, it just puts
Yeah.
you into, it literally feels like you're going into hell and back. That's what it is. But it's just using Vietnam War as, hell itself, right?
Right.
And it just from sound design to choice of music to visuals, everything just worked for me. Of course, Robert Duvall just stealing the show, you know what I mean? With his, I love the smell of the palm in the morning, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I want to bring this up too because of, Coppola's Redux, which I remember, like, before I even saw Apocalypse, I remember the Redux being that thing, right? So I saw the original and then I saw Redux actually have both of them on Blu-ray. It's one of those things that you say, yeah, I'm a collector, so I have both. And besides, I have the Heart of Darkness documentary as well, to which, talks about the whole making of that movie, right? But yeah, Redux came, I saw it, it dragged, because he had this subplot involving the
Yep.
soldiers going
I
into this French
hated it.
plantation, And I was
Yeah, he,
wondering if it was going to connect the Vietnam War to France and something, and they kind
well,
of do, but
Vietnam is thing now is was a French colony,
right,
so
right, French colony, right. But it
yeah,
just
we get all of
stopped.
that. We
Yeah,
get
but
all
it
of that.
just
It's
stops
just
the show. It
yeah,
stops the
so
show
rubbish
to
edit.
do this. Yeah, and I'm like, why? Why?
Yeah,
Like the movie was great as it was. You didn't need this, but I understand. Coppola was like literally was going through hell when he made the show, and I
right.
know that he was yeah he like if you're watching documentary, he'll tell you he was doing
No, we know.
rewrites
Yeah,
in between,
yeah.
so he
No,
felt
Heart
like he
Attack
had to
is
do this. Yeah,
yeah. I know the documentary Heart Attack is very famous. You know how infamous the set was and all the bullshit and who got a heart attack and all that bullshit,
yeah,
right?
and
But no,
a big monsoon and thing destroying the
right.
set, all kind
Yeah,
of craziness. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So is that?
But
But
I get
yeah,
that Coppola had his vision. He wanted stuff that he shot to be in the show. So I get that, years after people praise it and put it in the best of all time. Okay, here's the longer version that we should initially, but not the I think the initial cut was 4 hours, so
right,
they had to cut it down. So it's one of those scenarios that it's like, yeah, this is some extra stuff. Here you go, right? And yeah, it was what it was, right? But I didn't think that he was going to do this again until he got to, Godfather Part 3 there. But I just run around to
right,
Part 3 and then you'll share your thoughts on 3, right?
right,
Um, but yeah, I saw it. I saw 3, like I saw it in the context of what we got with the first two movies. And while I did appreciate this is at the time when I watched it over, I got what you were getting at in terms of okay, well, this is closure. This is not gonna be how the first two films were, right? But this is a brand new story here. We're talking about the Vatican, sorry, real situations that take place, but it has some mafia undertones going on here and stuff, you know what I mean? But I saw it and I was like, yeah, that's fine. But, as far as the ending of the series, it just, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. Like, I think it's because of the reputation of the first two, because they are so widely regarded, because they're such epic films, right? You go into this one and it just doesn't feel like that. It just feels sort of tired, you know what I mean? Just like all the magic and luster just sucked out of the show now. Now we have old characters, you know what I mean, just harping about all the bad stuff they did in the past and consequences, all that kind of stuff. So I didn't hate Patry when I saw it, again. But I would admit I was let down compared to what we saw, the first two. That and it kind of hit me the this is why people don't really like trequels all that much. You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah, because they're just not gonna match. They just can't capture the magic of like the first film, or not so much the second film, but just the first film. It's just not gonna match it. You know what I mean? So I just kind of treat it as, oh well, this is how the series ends. All right, cool, whatever. Moving on with my life. At least we have Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. That's like the one prequel which works, but then
Right.
the excuse is that it's one full story being told right over the course of
Yeah.
like 3 films, right? So that's the excuse. That's why I could get away with that. But when it comes to prequels, it's just no. I mean, Matrix Revolutions, Bleach,
Yeah.
Trinity, and yeah, this movie here too. So, what were your thoughts on Patry when you first saw it? Like your other thoughts on Patry?
So I got into it late. So as I say, it's one of those films I didn't see until way later. Like I didn't, because yeah, that's no again another reputation thing. So I didn't worry to watch it because like yeah, I like Godfather too, but again because I'm not into the whole gangster whole thing, I'm not super into that. So it's like whatever, fine. And then I saw it, and I was like, all right, I see why this didn't work. It just the energy not there. All of the Coppola vibe, the timing, and it's just because another big problem was, oh yeah, Goodfellas came out at the same time, and I was like, oh shit, I could see why this get here up. I don't hate it. I get what he was kind of going for, but it's a Rise of Skywalker type scenario, right? Where it's a bunch of okay ideas, but nowhere they fleshed out properly or done properly. That's how I kind of see it.
Right, right, right. I understand. So here's the thing, though. Here's where things gonna get pretty interesting, though. So in preparation for the release of Coda, I thought, you know what? let me actually rewatch three. As a matter of fact, I just rewatched the whole trilogy. I just took a few days and just ran them through like this one film a day, right? Just to refamiliarize myself with the world that Coppola, sorry, built so you know effortlessly with the first one, right? And here's the thing, right? Like the first two movies still timeless, still masterpieces, right? But when I got to the third one, I'm talking about like literal last week and the time recorded here, right? I kind of got to really appreciate it though, in a weird way. I'll explain. I'll explain what I mean. Like this to me, it feels like okay, like we talked about the energy wasn't there in this film, right? I felt like just looking at it now with mature eyes, that was intentional. Like just the
Right,
approach to the story, the way how solemn and somber the story is, it
right,
feels all intentional. Like like in retrospect, I still wish that, and this is why I brought up, what Coppola did in the 70s. Like maybe he could have capitalized on that energy, what he had in the 70s. But I feel, because of what happened in Apocalypse Now, just probably mash him up mentally there. So he just really couldn't put out anything until like I think it's Rumble Fish in the 83.
right.
So, like I think like between Apocalypse Now and then, at that film, he could have put out part three, right? But anyway, so timing aside though, watch this again. I felt like, yeah, the show is different than the first two because obvious, Coppola's in a different place, right? He's not as young and adventurous as he used to be back then. But even still, because remember, well, another thing, I mean, 2 years after the release of this movie, he put out probably one of his most ambitious films ever. That would be Bram Stoker's Dracula. Still my
Right.
favorite Dracula movie, period. But look at how stylish, like just stylish as EF, what I mean, that movie was, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you just saw the energy come back here. But in this case, I just felt like it was intentionally subdued. You know what I mean? It just felt like, yeah, characters are old, so it's not going to be as, you know, epic and grandiose as the first two movies. It's going to be more somber than ever, right? And I guess in Coppola's mind, this is how he wanted the story to end. This is what he was going for. And because I dug into the story, because I was just looking at Michael's character actor for the first one to this one here,
Yeah.
it it actually works. Like if when you really think about it, right? There's just really well, what is about in a nutshell? It's just about him trying to make his the Corleone family legit, right?
Yeah.
So he got rid of all the you know gambling stuff which he was
Yeah.
starting in the first
Yeah.
film,
That's
and
you're trying to go
right.
clean. Yeah. I get that. Yeah.
Right. So here is just like, well, yeah, he all know, right? He did everything he could, but he's still alone, but he's thinking about his son and his daughter. His daughter actually running the foundation that he's running, right? So, it's just, everything just wants to be legit now. So here comes the Vatican. They call him, somebody stole our money, some fraud thing was going on. So he wants you to donate some money, right? So yeah, he donates it, but the money doesn't go to the bank. It goes to the Swiss bank, and he runs off the money there. And then you have Sonny's bastard son. That would be Vincent, played by Andy Garcia, showing up, right? Talking about, his boss, Joey Zaza, he make a scene and sell drugs, and now he becomes an enemy because he felt that he was not let in. Sorry, he felt like he was just, more or less cast aside as part of this whole union with all these mafia dons and all that kind of stuff. So one thing kind of leads to the next, and we get betrayal and revenge and all that good stuff, right? But yeah, here, it just kind of feels intentional, like like this is the end, guys. So we're not gonna be as grandiose as we used to be. It's just like we just kind of holding on to these old things that kind of don't make any sense anymore. These old ideals that were kind of good in the 50s and 60s when we kind of get away with shooting men in the street, but here we can't really do that now, but we kind of still want to. That kind of vibe does. So it grew on me actually the more that I saw it. And I would say that I really enjoyed it and really appreciated it more with this new viewing that I checked out with Part 3 itself. And
Right.
then we get to Coda itself, right? Which was touted as this recut version of the first film, right? So, sorry, of the original film. So, just to get this out of the way, guys, it's the same film as before. It's
Right.
just that they make some tiny tweaks it, right? I would say about, because I'm looking at the runtime now, about 12 minutes roughly. Well, just
Okay.
yeah, well, I would say not that much amount of time has been cut out. About roughly 12, or I should say about 5 minutes basically is really cut out, right? We're talking about end credits as well. So this version is 2 hours and 37 minutes. The original version is 2 hours and 42, right? So not that much of a change. But here's the shocking part about this though. The stuff that they actually cut out, which really isn't anything much that I honestly remember or like really latched on to or cared about. I didn't miss those scenes at all, Trent. And really what we got here is a much smoother, a better paced film. And really, like, you really felt like um, this is what Coppola was going for in the first place, Trent. And I might surprise you with this one here, but it's a great way to end the series off.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
I
So
don't know
so
how he do it, but
how much is changes conceptually?
all right. So I'll just kind of mention briefly the changes that were made, right? So
Right.
he kind of gets to what the story is about, right? So in the
Right.
original version, you get this sort of long drawn out stuff about how Michael's feeling as an old man, and
Right.
Kay's not with him anymore, and he killed Fredo way back when, and all that kind of stuff. There, so
Right.
it takes a while for him to get to the moment where he's talking to the bishop, right, Bishop Gilday. But the show itself opened to that with him talking to the bishop about the whole Vatican Bank thing. So it cuts to that immediately. So
Right.
all the extra 5 minute stuff that was in the original film is gone completely, right? You don't even tell you what year it is, right? Because there was always a thing with the movies, they would never tell you the year, but they'll always kind of have you kind of figured out, like, oh, if you look at a newspaper, or if you hear somebody mention, oh, it's 1950 this. So in part three now is 1979 now, but they don't tell you
Yeah.
it's that until they get to this newspaper montage, right? You know what I'm talking about if you saw it.
Yeah.
So right, so it jumps in right to what the main theme is about, right? Him basically wanting to expand to this European conglomerate called Immobiliare. Sorry, Immobiliare. I believe that's how you pronounce it. If I butcher the name, please forgive me. Right. So it tells you right off the bat what Michael is doing, right? And then they cut to the banquet where he gets the medal there, right? Which was what opened the film in the beginning. So in other words, they kind of switch scenes around us. So the whole Vatican stuff kind of comes in the first half hour, kind of,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Because you get
Okay.
this long, banquet stuff, and when Vincent comes in, and Joey, and everybody, and all that kind of stuff, right? It just switches things around, but it works, right? And they
Right.
shorten down the opening duration, so that works as well too. So everything is feels a lot tighter there. It gets to the point quickly, right? But from that point on, everything else plays out exactly how it was in the original cut, right? There's a moment in Sicily, right? 'Cause what happens is that, well, his son Tony, right, who decides he wants to be this opera singer. He gets to he got a role to be part of this play in Sicily, so he invites everyone. So he Kay actually goes up, Mike goes up, Mary, who is Michael's daughter, played by Sofia Coppola. I get to hear a bit. Yes, everyone goes up there. So there's a moment where they're talking about how all this beauty in Sicily, but all this violence too. And well, one big subplot was Mary hooking up with Vincent there.
Right.
And Michael was saying, well, dude, if because he's all like, you know what, if you want to want to go and kill Joey, fine, you go ahead. I just don't want to be a part of it. But if you
So
want to go down that route,
they get around Sophia bad acting in this.
I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that.
Right.
So yeah, so that was a big subplot, right? So it's like, all right, well, at that moment actually he does kill Joey, right? And I actually thought that killing him off halfway in the show was awesome. The way how he kills him is badass in my opinion. But yeah, so it's like, look, he's still on this partner, like he still wants to be a mafia don. But Michael is like, look, if you want to do that, that's fine, but you just can't be with my daughter. because he warns him early on they're gonna come at you, they're gonna attack what you love now. So he fears that it's gonna be his daughter, right? So there's a moment near the end where, well, near the end of that scene where Michael is telling his daughter, "Look, I know you're with Vincent, but you can't be with him, you know." And in the original cut, she's like, "No, leave me alone," and she runs off now like some little schoolgirl. They cut that scene out entirely where she runs
Okay.
off. She
Wow.
just says
Right.
no, and then the next shot is just
Yeah.
her in the bedroom with Vincent, and I was
I
like,
get the feeling.
"This makes
I get the
sense,
feeling.
though."
I get the feeling Coppola just had like real Monday morning quarterbacking for this to go back and do
Boy,
something like this, because
yeah,
like
yeah,
all
yeah.
these
But
little
it's
nitpicks,
simple
especially
cut,
the age,
no?
yeah, especially the age of the internet where everybody, nitpickery anyway. So I get the feeling that he probably read through some hardcore fan site and be like, all right, okay, let me pick up, see all the complaints and then address most of them, if not all. And most of them is like, because that's the thing, a lot of these films they fail because of like kind of structural approaches, not really the actual story itself, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
but yeah,
Exactly. And if I am to be honest, Red, this to me is what really brought down the third film, because
yeah,
it's not like the story was badly told or half-assed. No,
right,
there was heart to it. No, it's just the pacing was just sluggish. There was just moments that went on, and you just think that they're going to lead to places, but they just don't. So thankfully, now with this re-edit, it just like just by shifting things and just like trimming certain scenes, or like I was saying with Sophia, just cutting that moment where she runs away. Like I thought that was great there, because at first, like in the original cut, it just makes it look like she's just some kind of giddy little schoolgirl who, because yeah, she's younger than Vincent, right? So it's like, oh, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna listen to you, Dad. I'm gonna be in love with him forever. It just felt like that when she run, but just cutting at that exact moment when she says no, and then the bedroom scene afterwards, that makes sense to me. Like it's just simple foresight there. So the elephant in the room now, and another reason why people is harp on the show so much, Sofia Coppola herself, right? All right, so yes, if for those who don't know, Winona Ryder was supposed to be was originally cast to play Mary Corleone, right? But I
yeah,
believe that at the time that when she arrived on set, or around the time when she was about to start production, she got sick, like really bad, like really badly there.
yeah.
So it was like, all right, let's cast Sophia. I mean, this is her first time acting. She's my daughter, so okay. I Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, it's not a perfect performance, though. Like, I don't think it's horrible, eh?
And
But
I
yeah,
remember,
there are some moments where she's just delivers lines flat, like and they keep them, unfortunately. But
yeah,
in this case, I didn't mind it so much because I'll explain a bit, right? So there's one moment where just a little moment where she's talking to her father, and it's like, "Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do this for? I thought it was about the family," and she just
right,
says it so dry, man. I'm
yeah.
like,
Line reading, yeah,
just line reading, just simple line reading, and I know, I get that, like in retrospect, right? I get that maybe they try to show her just sort of naive, right? Like maybe she just doesn't know certain things. She doesn't know the inner workings of the business. I understand that. That's cool. And I guess in terms of casting, I remember Roger Ebert making this, little argument that perhaps he didn't want she to be this bombshell. So she looks. I find like she's attractive for what she is, right? For how she
right,
look, right? But she's not like star power. Like, oh my god, I have to see this movie with Sophia, right? It's a first time, right? So she comes off as, I'm young, I'm doing this for the first time. I'm not, some sex symbol or whatever. So, but
yeah,
at the same
exactly,
time, you
yeah,
can understand why a guy like Vincent could be attracted to her, even
yeah.
though the chemistry had to build itself. That's all we'll see. But yeah, I would say that, like, just look at it now, that I would say that her performance was like the worst thing ever. Like I remember she was nominated for a Razzie for a performance, so,
Yeah,
but I just felt like some lines though were just dead. I mean, just
right. Yeah.
just a little extra take there, in my opinion. But yeah, your take on Sophia quickly.
No, I just remember her being pretty bad. Flatline reading, and I was like, but again, at the time, I would say it's because everybody, yeah, everybody kind of prime here for the how bad this film is kind of thing. So I think it was that you're looking out for the bad performance, but yeah, it's still a bad performance. I mean, all things considered. So I can't defend it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I guess at the end of the day, this is something that we, this can be. It'll always be debated there. You know what I mean? if it's just, oh, it's just first time jitters, or maybe she just didn't really know what to do, or she just didn't give a shit, or yeah, she just flat out is a bad actress, with that role. But hey, I mean, she bounced back. She directed
Yeah,
movies, so hey, you know what I mean? So cool, right?
right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty much everything else is exactly where exactly how it was in the original film. So another scene, dude, which to me was always problematic, though, was the climax. This was to me the most ambitious section of the whole film, right? And with the Godfather films, you always have this climax where you have this big operatic thing going on. So it's either something at church, like in the first film, or in this case here is the opera that Tony is a part of, right? And in this case, we have five assassination plots going on roughly at the same time. And the way how it cuts back and forth, it's still slightly problematic though, but it's one of those moments that if you watch really closely, and I was fortunate enough because I saw the original version and then the Coda afterwards, I was able to pick up on it a little bit more, so it wasn't as hard to follow as before. But yeah, first time I saw it, then couldn't make head or tails or what was going on because it was this guy, the bishop was going to, bishop got killed, and the banker who ran off with the money, he got killed, and Eli Wallach, who was also in this film, he got killed too, and Michael was going to get assassinated, and it's just all these things going on there. So it's hard for me to pick up on what was going on. But here, I'd admit, yes, it is a very ambitious scene though, because you're balancing pretty much six scenarios going on, and even more actually over the course of like 10 minutes. So there's just so much this kind of balancing back and forth. It is very jumbly still, but I do applaud the ambition that went into that scene. And like once you're locked in and oh, character A had to kill character B and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, okay, okay. And now that you can always rewind and pause and all that kind of stuff, you could kind of pick up on what going like, oh, okay, okay. So the scene works better now, right? And then of course, well, we have another scene that people kind of harp on is when Mary gets shot right near the end of the
Right.
film, and Al Pacino doing this all that kind of stuff, there, right? Some people just kind of find a little hammy. I think it works. It's a very, very, very powerful, very sad moment. But yeah, I know some people will still be like, yeah, that overacting stuff, right? Near the end of the show, right? So in the original cut, what it does, it sort of so it dissolves into this like just a few scenes that we see, right? So it involves a scene that we saw earlier, that is Mary and Michael dancing, right? At the whole banquet thing, right? But then you'll see like before that you also see you see the moment where Michael was dancing with the Sicilian girl in the first film, and when he was dancing with Kay in the second film there. So and the song that they played it, I forgot what it is, this classical piece. That's the same song that they use as the theme music for Raging Bull, which I always felt was kind of ironic, right?
Right.
Because it's all about characters wanting to be redeemed, and this song, because of how powerful its songs, kind of give the impression that you could be redeemed. It's just yeah, you may lose a lot from it. So it's a bittersweet victory. That's how that song feels like to me. I really feel like don't know the name of that song, but whatever, right? But yeah, point is that's what they use and they play it through the end of the movie, right? And then last couple of shots you see is older Michael now at this place in Sicily, his property in Sicily. And I remember like Roger Ebert was like real picking on the makeup, call it like he just didn't like the makeup there. It just looked bad, right?
Yeah.
And then that's the moment where Michael puts on the shades and then he just drops off the chair that he sits on. They have a couple of street dogs. So here's what they do. So instead of those two, the dance numbers for the first two movies, it just only shows you the one with him and his daughter, and then it cuts to him just sitting on the chair and him putting on the sheets, and then it just
Right.
fades to black.
Right. Okay.
And so I you know what, it took me back there because I thought, well, at least we just show Michael literally die in front of our eyes there. But I kind of interpret it as it's rather I die with my head held high than
Yeah.
on my knees like a dog there. You know what I mean? So and yeah, just thinking about it, like just thinking about which I did, right? Just seeing Michael, right, this big mafia dud who we were following through the course of three movies, just lump over onto a, just lean over a chair and fall and die, and nobody cares. It just felt a little too pitiful in my opinion. Like, this man should be a legend, and this is how he just gonna die just like that. And I get that it's supposed to compare to like what he did with the first movie, but
Yeah,
in the case with Vito's death, with Mike Marlon Brando's death, but here's the catch, because Tony, as in baby Tony, was there, right? You know what I'm talking about, where
yeah,
they were running through the little orange grove, well, the little field thing, and then he gets a heart attack and die. That worked better because it's like, all right, well, Vito he already did everything that he could do in life, right? And now he has a grandson and he's playing with him. But it's kind of ironic now that when he dies now, his grandson is unaware of what went on. So it works in that context. Like, he gained everything he wanted, so he just happened to die. In this case, well, Michael lose everything. So just showing him just lean over the chair and die, just make his death look pitiful in my opinion. But here, just ended it with him just kind of putting on the sheets and lifting his head works for me. Because just like
yeah.
it recontextualized the whole arc itself there. So
Right.
while he could, because really at the heart of the show itself, at the heart of the series, it was always about redemption. It was always about like, for all these bad things that I did, can I be redeemed? Is there any good, or can I have, or can I at least spend the rest of my days just being a good person? Or will the sins of my past always be a part of me, or always will affect me in one way or the other? So I just felt like, in terms of just ending the shot, like ending the movie like that, it gives the sense that, yes, I lost everything, but still I could kind of see that I learned my lesson. I could still see, at least I could see that I did do good in my life, or at least it was all about my family at the end of the day. I wasn't as selfish as you might think. Or near the end of my life, the 12 years of my life, you know what I mean? I learned something. I understood what it meant to be a good person. So my death wasn't a total loss. That kind of vibe that you can interpret it in different ways, right? And the final, well, basically what we get is this closing text, which is, when the Sicilians wish you centani, it means for long life. And Sicilian never forgets. That's a
Yeah.
reference to the second film, which Fredo said. I love that. It doesn't tell you it's, oh, Fredo said that. It just kind of leaves it there. Though. But I love that it's there because, one big thing about the third film was, oh, we have to remind you that he already hit on his own brother, Fredo. But in this case, they removed that altogether. So it just kind of makes it like, oh, well, yeah, here's something that he said that really makes sense. I would really
Right.
think about it. Yeah, it's all about just not forgetting anything. Oh, you killed my father. This, talking about Vito when he was young. I'm gonna go to America. I'm gonna get big, and then years later, I'm gonna come back for you. That's the vibe. It was always about retribution and never forgetting certain things. But it could also be like, just the good things that you do. So yeah, you might look at Michael and be like, oh, he was a killer, he was a murderer, but at the same time, he did do good things. And he did have his heart on his sleeve. He did have a conscience, a moral conscience, which works, right? So it's all these little things that just make this film work even more for me, Trent. So yeah, I mean, I shocked, just tweaking a little something, taking out a few minutes of a show, and it works. Like,
Right.
I
Perfect.
actually surprised at how much it works though. So as a whole, I know I talked long about the show already. Um, I actually kind of love, this well, part three, no, or I should say the Coda, I should say. Well, or
Right.
in a
Right. Right.
nutshell, I'll say Coda more or less with the little changes that it makes though, but at the same time, it just kind of reminds the viewer that, I know 30 years haven't been, haven't been that well to that film, but it is still a great film, it is still a great way to close the series off. No, it's not as epic and grandiose as the first two films, but you gotta understand, Coppola was in a different place. You know what I mean? Like, he can't replicate what he did before. You know what I mean? And even if he could, that's not the story he wanted to tell. He didn't want it to be like that. He wanted it to be more somber, more, reflective, more introspective in a sense, right? And you have to respect that. You have to respect that this is the story he wanted to tell, and this is
Right.
how he told it, right? For better or for worse. You could nitpick to your dying days about Sofia Coppola's acting, but I felt like character-wise, she still is an integral part of the story, especially with what happens to her at the end and how that affects Michael and all that stuff there. So it still works, right? And to me, this Coda just kind of wipes away the stigma that it had before. Like, oh,
Right.
it's not as good as the first two films, so yeah, that technically means it sucked. No, it doesn't. It's just it's a different film, different context, but it works. It just ends. It I would say as a clue, just to round things up. It ends on a fitting note. It may not be the note that you wanted it to end, but to me, it just felt appropriate. Like this is how it needed to end, right? So yeah, as a whole, this new version, this edited version, this kind of there just to remind you, this movie was great. You just kind of need to watch it over again, maybe with older eyes, and you'll realize that. So it was like me, like I at first felt it was just kind of dull and boring, but as I got older, I was like, nah, this actually have a lot to say, Trent. You know what I mean? It's not as it's not as grandiose as the first two movies, but like I say, that's not the point, right? So he had to tag this new version for that, Trent. So as a whole, this Coda, the Death of Michael Corleone version, I'm gonna give this a like 4.5 out of 5, man. I was really shocked at how just little changes were able to just make a misunderstood movie actually great, you know what I mean? And I hope that more people will actually actually not only check this new version out, but check the older version too, and just really appreciate it. But I would say yes, the older version does suffer from sluggish pacing, and it's just funny that just changing certain things around was able to just fix that, right? So you had to give props to Coppola for at least watching, I don't know, probably 10, 15 years of YouTube videos, talking bad about the film and be like, you know what, let me just make with changes and stuff there. So here you go, here's your version, take that and leave it, right? So it is what it is. And I would actually recommend, Ricardo, that you check it out though. The pacing is
Okay.
a lot tighter, the story makes a lot more sense, and you just feel that finality in it though. You feel like this is what Coppola really, really wanted, or yeah, this is what he was aiming for all the time. And yeah, I mean, I can't be mad at that one. I mean, this is I feel now like the series got its the trilogy got the send off that it deserves. I hope that more people over the years give this film a rewatch and really appreciate it for what it is, man. So yeah, can't complain, man. So strongly recommend checking out the Godfather Coda, the Death of Michael Corleone.
Okay.